Welcome to a new guide on this channel, and this occasion is the CZ or CZ V from Arturia. This is not a review, it's a complete deep dive guide about this synth. Everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. Now, if you like this, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Everything is at the description. So this synth is a phase distortion synth. It's a very particular synth, but it's really cool. Now, the main place where we need to start is in the lines, line 1 and the line 2, and these are the oscillator parts. Okay, so for now, the line 2 is going to be off, and I'm always going to be starting from a default patch, so we can all start from the same place. So right here on the line number 1, we can see the waveform that we will be playing, and right here on the display, it will just show you the line 1 and line 2. Now, if I play something, it's going to sound like this. We can see the spectrum, and we have the oscilloscope that I'm showing you right there at the bottom. Now, most of the waveforms, they start as a sine wave, so it doesn't matter that you have a saw right here. You might have a pulse right here, or maybe a square or whatever, and it's still going to be a sine wave. Now, the way that this works is that it will apply a phase distortion, and that is what it will transform whatever you have right here. So if I go up on this control, which is the DCW, digital controlled waveform, it will just modulate the waveform to transform it into whatever you have right here. So if we have a saw and we have a pulse, it's going to morph into a saw and all the way to a pulse right here. Now, one of the cool things that we can do with this one is that we can combine two different waveforms, right, on the left and the right. And we can combine one single output at the end. And it's a really, really cool thing. I could go right here to a saw, and we will be getting just a saw. Now, the thing is that when you do this, you need to be aware of the pitch, because you're just like going 2 octaves up. Especially when you change waveforms. It's going to be changing the pitch. Now, let me go down on the level. Now, most of the waveforms, even if you're using a saw, or maybe you're just using a square, they will always start as a sine wave. The pulse as well, but the other ones will give you something else. The DVL sign is going to be a double sign. And right from the start, it's not just a sign, it's a double sign. It's still going up, it will just transform it into something else. If I go to the saw pulse, this one starts as a sine wave, but it's just, a little bit different when you morph it. Now, the other ones, the reso, it's going to be a little bit different, and this is the final, waveform that we should be getting when we do DCW. Now, the other ones, the reso, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be sound like this, regrade, and then we have the number 3, which is, again, a little bit different. So this is how it works. You just choose whatever waveform you want to work with, and then you apply DCW a taste. And you can combine this with different waveforms just to get different tones. Now, on top of that, on each line, you can adjust the level, and this goes in tandem with the second line that we will, discuss in a minute. But you can also pan it to the left or pan it, to the right. And double click, it's just gonna take you to the beginning. Right, now, one thing that you need to be aware of is that you can link the waveforms. So if I'm using this saw right here, whenever I link it, this one is going to be doing the same as the first one. Right. If I change this one to a pulse, both are going to change. Same if I change this one. Now, this is something that you need to be aware of, because later we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to unlink for now, I'm going to talk about the custom. Now, if you do something on the custom right here, again, we're going to talk about this in a minute. If you link, it's going to erase whatever you had from here. And if you have something here and you change it to a custom, it's going to change the other one. So you need to make sure that, when you want to link and change the waveforms, that is, what you want to do. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the DCW. I'm always starting from a default patch. So by default, the DCW is like the main vibe of the synthesizer. You go up, you get your phase distortion, and you just, you get your sound. Now, right here, what we get by default is an envelope with multi-points, envelope. So we can just modulate this DCW on different ways. So for example, you get a minimum of release, which is the last point, You get a sustain, which is where you're going to be sustaining, and then the starting point. So what you can do is simple like that. You just can draw your envelope. This is the attack. It's going to go all the way up. Then it's going to go right here. It's going to sustain at this point, and when I release the keys, then it's going to go right here to the end. Right? Now, if your amp has no release, and we are going to be talking about this in a minute, you will never see the release. So on this, you can create, you can go really crazy. So you have 3 points, but you can create as many points as you like. And then go up, go down. You can even add curves to this by just doing something like that. And, maybe adding something, a little bit more unconventional. And this is just going to follow whatever you have right here on the DCW. Now, if you're starting from all the way down, maybe I want to start here. Well, this is just going to start from this point and then go up and down, right? But it's going to follow whatever you have right here. Now, by right-clicking the points, you can delete the points. And right here we have the sustain, but maybe I want this point to be the sustain. So you need to double-click, and it will make that one the sustain. Now, maybe I want to adjust the length. So if I want to select this and move everything at once, I cannot do it with this one. It's just the travel is gonna end as soon as it meets this one. But if I do shift, I can move everything. And you can go really long on this one. If I do something like this, it's gonna take a long time just to get here. And you do this by holding the shift. It's gonna move everything that it's before or after. If I do something like that, notice that it's going to be moving it. So it's going to move all of this. And I'm holding the shift, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back. Now, right now, since we moved everything, we have a lot of space right here. You don't need to drag. You need to double click. And it's just going to, zoom on this area. Now, there's a lot more to this because we have a dedicated section for envelopes. So everything that we are doing right here is a simplified version of what we can do right here. So we're going to spend quite some time talking about envelopes because we have a lot of more properties on this section. So I'm going to go back and we can keep moving forward. Back to a default patch. I need to talk about the line 2 because right now we have a single line, right? Just a single line. So when you enable the line 2, you just get like a second oscillator. Now it's a little bit different, but you get it. I can do a pause and have something else going on this one, something like that. And we can adjust the level. We can adjust the panning if we wish. And then I can do maybe something else on this one. And again, adjust the panning. Right, so pretty simple. Now still, I'm gonna go back to default. You have some options that, you get with the line 2 and the line 1. Now, the duplicate button is going to have the line 2 work as a copy of the line 1. So if I play it, it's going to be just like that. And if I go down, maybe I'm going to go up on the DCW so we can get more harmonics. If I go down on the 2, notice that it goes, right? So we'll lose a little bit of a level. And it's because it's just the same. But remember that this one is a separate line and you can do panning and you can just, do a little bit of fine tuning and just get that spread between the 1 and the 2. Now we, again, are going to talk about this a little bit later. But this is what the duplicate is going to do. It's going to grab the line 1 and whatever we do right here, not level and not pan, is going to just, apply it on the line 2. If I change it to something else, right here, if I go down level, notice that the line 2 or line 1 duplicate is doing the same thing. Alright, so back to default, I want to cover a different thing. Right here, maybe I'm going to be going to the custom. Now, the custom is a way that you get to create your own waveform. and it's really crazy. It's really fun. So let's say that you want to build your own custom waveform. This works just like, what we did right here on the DCW by creating the envelope. Well, this just works the same way. If I go to custom, we get it right here, but we are not doing anything because it's just going to be a dumb sine wave. So maybe I'm going to stay on target and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. I'm going to be doing something like that, maybe something like that. And I'm just going to, do whatever. It doesn't matter. Maybe something like that. All right. And then we will have, something like that. So when we go up on the DCW, notice that again, we have a sine wave right here. If I go up, it's going to start morphing to whatever we draw right here. This is why this is the target, is where we want to get when the DCW is all the way up. But if it's all the way down, it's going to be the line that we have at the back, which is the blue line. And this is going to be the base. So you can decide maybe where you want to start. So maybe this is going to be your start, right? Something like that, something simple. So we're going to start from here, and we're going to start morphing to the other one. And now we see where we are going with the blue lines and where we are starting. Now, since right here you might spend a lot of time, creating waveforms, you can go to presets. You don't have presets, but you can save your custom waveform so you can use it later. Okay, so back to a default patch. Now we covered this. We need to talk about the pitch and the amp, and this is going to be very simple because again, we will deep dive into the the envelopes in a minute. So right from the start on the line 1, you get a fast view to the pitch, and how it works is just the same way we get with the DCW. We just draw an envelope, and this is going to do pitch modulation. It's just gonna go up and down in pitch. If we start maybe on a different place, we do it like that. And it works just like, what we did before with the DCW. Alright, so then you have the same thing, but it works a little bit different because it's going to be the amp. And if you don't know what the amp is what, the volume is going to be the level. This is going to modulate the level. So if I add a little bit of attack, it's going to slowly go up. Now, if I go down on everything, we will have nothing. So if we add some attack, something like that, we're gonna be getting a pluck. Now, can we draw shapes or weird shapes like we did before with the DCW? Yes, we can. We can create multiple points, and this will just, go up and down in volume. And maybe I'm gonna be staying right here at the top. Maybe just do something a little bit more obvious, something like that. I'm gonna create a point right here, and there we go. And all this, we can create really cool sounds. Now, if I create an envelope like this, I would like to loop it and have something more constant. But you do have an option to do this, but all of this is going to be on the envelope section. So you know what? Let's go and talk about the envelopes. Right, so starting on the default patch, I'm gonna go to the envelope section. Now, whatever you have right here is a more complex version of whatever you get right here. You see your line 1 and 2 pitch, which is an envelope to modulate the pitch. Then you have your line 1 and line 2 DCW, and then you have the amp. And again, it's just a big ass version of whatever you get here. And then you have a mod 1 and mod 2. So these are envelopes, but we use them to run modulations later. So we're going to talk about them later. Now, for now, I'm just going to go to maybe the DCW. Or maybe, I'm going to go to the pitch. So when we go to the pitch, we have different envelopes. And this is why, the envelopes are so complex and so complete, because you have 3 different ways of creating envelopes for whatever it is that you want. Not only that, you have the velocity, you can make it bipolar. This is in the case of the pitch. You have different presets that you can use, and now you can loop, and you have more dedicated controls. Now, if I do something on the DCW, something like that, and I go to the line 1 pitch, you can see that there's something in the back. So you can go to the different, envelopes and see what they are doing on the same section. This is why the envelope section is super important. All right, so we need to dive into the 3 different envelopes that we get. And I'm going to start with the MSEG because it's the, it's more versatile and more complex. And the other ones are just going to be a little bit simpler. And always starting from a default patch, just in case, if I play something, we get pretty much nothing. I'm going to add a little bit of bite for now. All right. Right here, we can do the same thing that we did before. We can have the sustain. We can add a point, and it's just going to do that. And it's sustained right here. As we go up, we can, double click or right click to eliminate the different points. And by just, clicking, we're going to be adding different points. It's the same thing we did on this section. Same thing, same little thing. And notice that when we get the envelope right here, we see the fast view on this section. Now, at the top, you see a velocity and you see a bipolar. So the envelope, this envelope, at least, the pitch one, the other ones, you don't get it. You get it on the pitch, you don't get it on the DCW, you don't get it on the amp, and you get it on the mod. So the bipolar means that you can go down or you can go up. So right now we are going up and down and maybe staying right there. So it's going down, up in pitch, then down in pitch, and up in pitch. If we make it not bipolar, it only goes up in pitch. It's not going down. Right? Now, on top of that, you have presets that you can use for, to create fast waveforms and then maybe start from there. And some of the waveforms are really weird or complex, like this one. Right, so, again, all of this is just pretty simple. So I'm going to go back to default and I'm going to maybe stand on this one because the pitch is just a little bit annoying. So I'm going to stay on here and I'm going to keep the DCW down and we're going to create some envelopes, but we're going to talk about the velocity, the keyboard follow, and the loop that we get right here. So if I create an envelope with the fast envelopes, maybe I'm going to be doing something like that. Maybe I'm going to be adding a little bit of attack. Something like that, that's fine. Maybe a little bit slower. Okay, I'm going to be doing something like this. Now, at the very top, you have the velocity. Now, this one will make the envelope more reactive to your keys, your velocity. Now, if I play soft, it's going to do something like that. But if I play hard, it's the same thing, right? Soft, hard, just the same thing. So if you go up in velocity, if I play soft, you have lesser of an effect. If I go hard, you have more. So it depends on the velocity. This is gonna, move the DCW up a little bit more. It's just gonna do it a little bit less. Pretty simple. Now we're gonna talk about the keyword follow in a minute because it's just a little bit particular. Now, if you go right here at the bottom, right now I'm using no velocity, so every key I'm playing is just gonna do this instruction. So if I go to the depth is going to control the overall, modulation. If I go all the way down, if I keep going down, notice that it just gets a little bit softer. So again, from here, you just manage the depth. You can go into negatives if you wish. But if you have something that it's maybe too aggressive and you want to tone it down, you just need to go to the depth. Alright, now the other thing is that you can multiply it. Right now, if you notice, this goes on a certain speed. And it doesn't change. So by going up in the multiplier, it's gonna go faster, right? And if I go slower, it's gonna be a lot slower. Right, if you double click, it's going to go back to the default one. Now you can shift to fine tune the values, right? So, but you can also sync. Now when you go to sync, it's going to kind of, delete everything and you're back to nothing. So you can use the sync and right here at the back, you get the grid and everything will just snap to the grid and it will be a little bit more consistent because you're just, using a grid now. Now let me just, do something. Right. So right here, in the left, you have something that calls loop. So the loop is going to, if I enable, create a loop. If I play it now, it's going to loop the waveform. Right? So pretty simple. Now the thing is that you have a start and you have an end. So this is the start, and this works like a sampler. If you offset the start, the envelope will always start from the beginning, but when it reaches right here, it's going to do this motion and then loop this section. And you can see that it's only looping this part. That's why you have the start and an end. The start is when it will start looping, and the end is when it will end the loop. If I release it, it's going to, go on. Now, if we don't have any, any release, it will just, die right away. So I'm going to go back to the DCW, and when I release it, it's going to keep, to the other side of the envelope, or the loop in this case. Right. Okay, so starting from a default patch, we need to talk about the keyword follow, and it's a little bit weird. So we only get it on the DCW, and we get it on the amp section. So, and it works a little bit different on both. The idea is the same, but it just works a little bit different. So if I go to the DCW and I just look for something, I'm going to be using this as a template, and I'm going to be doing something a little bit shorter, just like that. Okay, so if I play a key, we get that, right? So it's modulating the line 1, and it's going up and using this envelope. Now, the keyword follow, what it will do, it will listen to your keyboard. So the lower notes, it will be just, the normal envelope. But if you play higher keys, the higher keys will, it's going to make it less bright. You will have less overtones. So it's going to be a little bit smoother to the higher keys. So if I go all the way up, just to show you how this works, I'm going to be playing a low key, all the way down, pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Now, if I go to a higher key, this is the higher key, and go up, a lot darker. So you can just play your lower keys. And if I go down, the higher keys are just much brighter. So this is, again, it's just reacting in a different way on the DCW envelope, when you play high keys or lower keys. Now on the amp, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go down on the keyword follow, but I'm going to go to the amp. And I'm going to do something about the same. I'm going to stand around maybe here and do a little bit of release. So if I play it, now I'm going to go more release. Yeah. And I'm going to go to the DCW, and I'm going to maybe do nothing. I'm going to go to this preset. I'm going to go up on the DCW, because what I want you to hear is the release and the decay of the notes. So now if I play higher keys, notice that we have a natural, sustain, and then we go after the sustain, we enter the release stage, and we have a, nice release. Let me go up on the on that one. But we get the release. If there's no release, it's gonna sound like this, right? So by adding release, it's just gonna give us that tail. Now look what happens if I go up on the keyboard follow. We choke the release. Right, so the release is much shorter, so it's going to make it shorter. If I go to lower keys, the lower keys will just maintain a little bit of that sustain. This is what I'm telling you, it just works a little bit weird. That's the lower keys and higher keys. Right? So yeah, it's just a little bit weird, but the concept, it's just the same, between the DCW and the amp, just pretty much the same. In the case of the amp, it's just gonna make the release a little bit, shorter, and it's gonna make everything shorter. And on the case of the DCW, it's gonna be less bright. Back to a default patch. So this is what we get on the MSEG, right? It's just pretty simple. You get your presets. You can just, adjust your points, create your own envelopes, do whatever the F you want to do. Now, the other one, the ADSR, is just an ADSR. And you know what? I'm going to maybe go to this one to do the ADSR. I'm going to go there, do the ADSR. And by default, it's going to look like this. So if I play it, if I go to the DCW, you notice that this is changing right here. So right here, you get your good old common attack, decay, sustain, release, your ADSR, with the addition of a delay. Now I'm going to be adding some attack, and we are going to be getting the attack, right? If I add some decay, we get the decay. And again, I'm not going to explain how ADSR works. You can easily go to the web and find how an ADSR works. And again, this is how it works. It's pretty simple. just a common ADSR, but you have the addition of a delay. So if you delay it, it's going to wait, for example, 1 second before it kicks in. I'm gonna maybe stay right there. If I play it, it's gonna take a little bit of time, and then it goes to the envelope. You get a delay. That's right. You're just delaying the envelope. Now still, right here you get all your, you get all your options. You get your peak if you want to go down to the peak, if you wanted to. And then you get your depth, which is something that we already talked about. And then you get your rate multiplier. And again, we already talked about this. The velocity is going to work the same way, and the keyboard follow will work the same way. Right. Again, just an ADSR with a little bit more, with a little bit, of extra controls. Now, I'm going to start on a default patch, and I'm going to be showing you with a default one, and I'm going to extend on the DCW, and then go to the CZ or Z set. So right here, you can just draw whatever envelope you wish. Notice that there is no time right here. You don't get anything on the timeline. That's, the first indication that this is going to be weird. So I'm going to start just like here. Maybe I'm going to go add the sustain at this point. And I'm going to add a breakpoint right here. Now, as I play it, what it does is going to go up. Right? Pretty simple. And we could assume that it's doing the same thing that the MSEG is doing. But it's not. Because in this one, the positioning is going to affect how fast it goes. We have a shorter, in time, we're going to go all the way to left. It's going to be very short, but as soon as I move it to the back, it's going to get slower and slower. So this is now very slow. Now this one, if I make it short, it's going to be a short, transitioning back. Right? It's going to be very short. But if I go like that, it's going to be much slower. So now how we draw and if we expand the different points is going to reflect on the speed. And on the MSEG, that's not the way it works. So we can have different, different rates. And that's why you have the rate option right here. And the other thing is that if you go up on this point, that's going to be the level. So if I stand right there and go down, notice that we are doing much less. Still is going to be faster, so if I do something like that, we are driving or just going up on the DCW, not a lot. And if I do this, it's going to be longer, but it's going to be a lot more aggressive. So now how high you go on this one, the level, is going to be, this one, the level. And the positioning is going to alter the rate or the speed, how fast it goes. Now, at the bottom, you have something, you can control the rate. Let me draw something like that. At the bottom, you have the rate. If you move this, it's going to adjust the rate for whatever point that you're selecting. That's why it's just making it wide, or it's just making it fast. So it's fast and slow, fast and slow. I'm going to make it something like around there. And the level's going to go up or go down. Now, still, if you want to adjust the envelope, remember that you can, the points all at the same time. You can do shift, and I'm holding the shift to move all the other points. If I'm not holding shift, it's going to do something like this. It works the same way than before. And then, you get all the other goodies. The endpoint is just going to be the endpoint. You can select which one is going to be the endpoint and which one is going to be the sustain. But, you can still double-click to select the sustain. And then the depth and the rate multiplier and the velocity and the keyboard follow will work the same way. Right, so these are all the envelopes. Now, we did a lot of talking and it's a lot of information. So I would suggest for you, before going to the modulations, because we're going to need to do a lot of explaining right here, to play around, to fool around, just, create a few custom waveforms, do a little bit of, create some envelopes and just, trying to get a feel of the synthesizer. Right, so starting from a default patch, we need to talk about the mod matrix. So what you get is 16 different slots where you can just, create modulations. So when you're working with the mod matrix, again, if maybe all of this, it's pretty obvious, but if you're learning, it might be a little bit confusing. So on a mod matrix, what you get is a source and a destination. So if I click right here, it's going to tell me source selection. So, and then if I click here, it's going to be destination. So the source is the one that will be doing the modulation, and the destination is what is going to be modulated. Now, by default, when you start with the default patch, it says that the mod wheel is going to give you Vibrato, which is this section that we have right here. We're going to talk about this much later at the end. So right here is providing an instruction of how much we should be doing Vibrato when we go up on the mod wheel, right? And I'm going to go all the way up just to, to prove that this is how it works. So if I play a key, we get nothing. And I'm going to go to my mod wheel and I'm going to go up. As soon as I go up, the mod matrix is letting that modulation pass through and it's just doing the vibrato, right? It's that simple. You just need to use your source and then use your destination. Now, let's do something a little bit more fun. So let's say that we want to select something different. And notice that you have different categories. If you go to global, notice all the things that you can use within global. This is not all the options. If you go to line 1, all the things that you can modulate on line 1, line 2, the envelopes, effects, LFOs, you can go nuts. So I'm going to go to the line 1 and I'm going to modulate the obvious thing with the mod wheel. I'm going to use the DCW. If I do this, it's going to be modulating the DCW up with my mod wheel. Right? Again, really simple. This is how it works. Now, you can chain, you can use different sources to modulate the same thing. That's why we have, this position. So let's say that we want to modulate the DCW less intense, less intense modulation, something like that. But also I want to use a source like an LFO, something that we have right here. We're going to talk about this in a minute. But if I go and find the LFO, I could use the LFO to modulate the DCW by this much. And if I do it, it's just going to go and modulate it. If I go super aggressive, it's just going to be way aggressive. If you go to lower values, it's going to be a little bit less aggressive. And we can go on some of the options negatively. In this case, it's pretty much the same effect. But, sometimes it's just going to be affecting it differently. For example, I'm going to be doing a little bit of modulation right here. Just a little bit. I can go to, and I can select, the right here. Let me just find it. Notice that you have a lot of options. So right here you have the mod envelope. Remember that we had a mod modulation envelope? So this is going to be the mod envelope. We can modulate that by this much. And we can do that. So I can do something like this. And every time I play a key, the modulation envelope is going to kick in. And it's sustaining at this point. Maybe I'm going to be adding no sustain. So it's going to go up, following the envelope. It's going to keep doing the LFO. And if I wanted to use the mod wheel, it's going to let me do it. So this is how you use the source. How you use the matrix. So maybe you want, right here, instead of selecting the DCW, you can use the LFO, the same LFO, just to modulate, I don't know, something else. Like, I'm going to modulate the master tune. Why not? Maybe we can add a little bit of wobbling, the tuning. Right? So this is how you use the matrix. You just combine, you use a source, you can modulate a lot of different things, and then you use your source and you just provide the value of how much you want to modulate it. And you have 16 of this. Now you can do it, but it's going to be divided in 2 pages, the 1 to 8 and the 1 through 8, and then the 9 through 16. Now I'm going to go back to a default patch, and we need to start with the LFOs, all of this section. And this section, it's really important for the synthesizer because it goes really wild on this. It gives you a lot of things. And we're going to start slow with the LFOs. So we get 2 different LFOs. They could be mono or poly. If you don't know the difference, I'm going to show you at the end because maybe you already know. But if you don't know, I'm going to show you why we get mono and we get poly. Now we have different waveforms from sine to triangle, then to a square. Then we go to a saw down, or we can go the other way with saw up. Or we can have sample and hold. And notice that we already have sample and hold right here. Now we're gonna talk about this because it's super special. Now I'm gonna be going to a sine wave. And then right here, you can decide in what you want to sync in. Hertz is gonna be a manual one, right? You just go faster with the rate, or you just can go slower with the rate, right? Pretty simple. Now then you go to sync. Binary is just sync, right? So you can go in divisions. Now, then you go triplets. You can do the same, but triplets, and then dotted notes, right? Then you have the key re-trigger, and I'm going to be doing something maybe 1 hertz, something, and it's not super fast. I'm going to be going maybe right here to the source, and I'm going to select the LFO 1 so we can just modulate something. And in this case, I'm maybe going to go to the line 1, and I'm going to use the line 1 pitch. Right. So if I use the line 1 pitch, and I go up in the modulation, we're going to be getting something like this. Now, we don't have a lot of harmonics, so I'm going to be maybe adding a little bit of harmonics. Right. If we go faster, it's going to go faster. If it goes slower, it's going to go slower. Now, we need to talk about the key trigger. Now, this is something pretty common that you get in most synthesizers. Now, if I play a key and keep playing it, and I just tap it, you can see right here how I'm tapping it right here on the keyboard. Notice that sometimes it's going to start up in pitch and sometimes it's going to be down. And this is because it's not re-triggering every time I play a key. The LFO doesn't give an F that I'm playing a key. So it'll never restart. It's a constant motion. Now the key trigger, when you enable this, now the LFO will give an F, and every time I play it, it's going to restart the LFO. And this is why we always see, we hear that we always start from the same place when I'm pressing the key like this. If I'm pressing and holding, it's going to go through the same LFO constantly because I'm holding the key. But if I play it again, it will start from the beginning of the waveform. Right? This is the key trigger or re-trigger. Something very common that you get on a lot of synthesizers. Now then you have something cool called fade in, and this is again something very cool we get on a lot of synthesizers, something very common. If I play a key, as soon as I play it, it will start right away, right? The modulation, I mean. And this is something that gets enabled when we do key trick. Now if I go up on the fade in and select something around 3 seconds, I'm going to be playing a key and nothing happens. So there's a delay time and then it will slowly fade in. But mostly, it's delaying the effect by some amount, and then fades in. If I go really wild, something like 10 seconds, it's going to take for a long time for the LFO to kick in. Almost there. There we go. And it keeps going up, and then grows up, right? Now, pretty simple. You have a fade in. Now, I'm going to go all the way to 1. We don't want it. So then you have something right here that says inf. So this is something pretty cool. So when we play a key, it's going to do whatever the LFO is instructing, right? But you can go right there and notice it says inf, but if I go down with the mouse, it's going to be 8, then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this is the amount of cycles that the LFO is going to provide to the modulation. So we can maybe, let's say that I want to use only 2 cycles of an LFO. So it's going to be up, down, and then it's going to die. Up, down, and die. So we are just using 2 cycles. So by doing this, we just can, instead of have a constant LFO or modulation or motion, it's just going to have 2 cycles. Now if I go to 4, it's going to be a little bit longer. Right. And if I go to 8, of course, it's going to be doubled. Right. Now, you don't usually get this stuff with synthesizers. You just get an LFO, with a bunch of options. But this one is, pretty cool. Now, the second LFO, it's completely equal to the LFO number 1. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to add more harmonics to something like that. And I'm going to go back to modulation. So I'm going to explain why we have mono and why we have poly. Now, if you already know this, you can move on to the next section, which is going to be the sample and hold. Now, if you don't know, have no idea why an LFO could be mono or poly, stay. So, okay, so I'm going to be playing a low key, and I need you to see the spectrum. If I play it, you can see maybe it's too low. We can see it's moving. If I play a new key, a higher key, you can see that higher key. I'm playing 2 keys. I'm going to be playing a 3rd key. And I'm going to be playing a 4th key. And so on. I'm going to be playing a 5th key. Now, as we can see on the spectrum, everything moves in a uniform everything, it's moving the same direction, right? It's grooving with the LFO the same way. And this is because it's mono. All the different keys that we play, doesn't matter if we play 10 keys or 5 keys, they all will groove to the rhythm of the LFO number 1. But when you have a poly, every key that you play will start on a different place in time, because you play the keys at different points in time. So when you play a key, maybe it's going to be on a different position on the LFO, so it's going to be moved on a different way. So it means that each voice will have its own LFO. It just, it's going to do the same LFO, but it's going to start on a different place. And I'm going to prove this. I'm going to be playing a low key, and it grooves that way. Now, if I play a higher key, what is it? They almost move the opposite direction. I'm going to play one more. And one more. And this. Notice that how the peaks right there interact. So this is what happens when you have poly LFO. If you have a mono LFO, it's just going to be, everything is just going to be more uniform. Right? Alright, so that's the difference between mono and poly. So back to a default patch. Now we need to talk about the sample and hold. And it's a very simple one, but it's a very cool one. Now the sample and hold, usually it's associated with random. It's a random source, right? So maybe I'm going to be going again to get more harmonics and go to the modulation. And I'm going to be grabbing that sample and hold and doing, modulating the pitch again. Why not? Because it's just pretty obvious. So I'm going to be going really aggressive. That is how it goes. So we get a random. And this is how it works. You can go up and go faster in that randomness. And you can go slower. And right here shows you how it goes. Now you can change this to, sync it, and it works just like the LFO. Sync it, triplets, dots. Pretty simple. You also have your key trigger, which means that every time that you play it, it will start with in a new place on the, sample hold. And we're going to talk about the smooth in a minute. Now, you know what? I'm going to show you right now. So notice that everything is super squared. So there's no smoothness. I'm going to go slower. So it's not smooth. So the smooth is going to add a little bit of roundness to the corners. It's still, doing the same modulation, but it's a way of it's gliding to the changes, just smoothing the corners. And this is again another thing that you get on a lot of synthesizers that use sample and hold. It is a way of smoothing, the LFO. Now, this is not super important right now. I'm gonna go all the way down. The most important part of this sample and hold is the option to select other sources. Usually sample and hold, we use a noise generator. Why? Well, because the noise is a very unpredictable sound source. So the sample and hold will take little samples and from a source. And since the source, if the source is a noise, it's very unpredictable. That's why you get a random. But what happens if you select a predictable waveform, like an LFO, right? Something super predictable. Now the instruction is not going to be so random because it's not noise. You can select the LFO and notice that now we have a pattern. But it works a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different than the LFO. It's taking those snapshots from this LFO, from this sine wave. But it's very predictable. Now we can go maybe slower, or we can go faster. And notice that now it looks like a bit crushed LFO. So this is what it does. Now, usually it's noise because it's very unpredictable. Now, the cool thing on this synthesizer is that you can use other sources like, the pitch. You can use the combine. We can talk about this. Or we can even use the sound that comes out of the line 1. Because all of this, at the end of the day, when we use this, is about voltages, right? It's about voltage. Now, this is an emulation. It's digital, right? We don't really have voltage. But behind the scenes, it's trying to be like that. And this is what we get on the combine, right? So starting from a default patch, now you can select the source, then a mod, and that mod will be processed, will process the source differently by combinating, both sources by doing a math operation. Now, again, like I told you before, This works like like working with a modular synthesizer, with everything is voltage. With even an analog synthesizer, everything is voltage and math. So whatever source that you select, I'm gonna be doing something simple. I'm gonna go to the LFO1, and whatever source you select, and then you process it in somehow with voltage, then you're gonna get a different outcome. Now I'm gonna be using the LFO2, just to show you how this works. So I'm gonna be going to plus. So if I go to plus, we are just adding, we are summing, not adding, summing. If I go the amount, how much do we want to do? Notice that there's a change on the instruction on the LFO. So if I go down, is a little bit different. Now, right now the difference is not so much with the sum, but what happens if I do the difference? So if I do difference, now it's going to be the complete opposite. If I go all the way down, we are doing this minus this. And it's the same, it's completely the same, so we get nothing. If I go down, we just get the same LFO. But the trick right here is to maybe select different sources. What if I do saw down, and I keep going up, so you will start getting a different waveform. And that's the whole point, right? So use this combinate, and I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to do combinate, and I'm going to be doing, I don't know, again, the line 1 pitch. I'm going to go up on the DCW so we can get more harmonics, right? I'm going to be doing this. We are going to be, maybe pitch was not the... You know what? Let's do the DCW. I'm going to go line 1, DCW. This is what we get. So behind the scenes, it's just an LFO, but we can just do the math and get a different instruction. Now, I cannot go really crazy right here because this guide is already too long. But instead of doing the difference, we can multiply. So if I multiply, now the instruction is going to be different. Now remember that the amount will have an effect on whatever we are doing. And if we select a different mod, it will just be a little bit different. If I do a sample and hold, now it's going to be different. Now let me do a triangle. I'm going to do a square. There you go. Now, then we have the other one, which is going to be the divide. And there's all the different waveforms that you can create with this. It's great. Now, I'm going to use the crossfade. Now, the crossfade is a little bit, it's just a little bit different. So we have an LFO and we have a square, right? If I go to this side, to the amount 0, we are doing a sine wave. If I go to the other side, completely to the other side, we have the LFO2, which is the mod. Now, while we are going to the in-betweens, we get a combination of both. We are crossfading the sine wave, the LFO1 to the LFO2 and vice versa. So again, we are crossfading. Right, so that's the whole point. You use your different types, you use maybe different sources, maybe different mods, and notice all the things that you can select as mod and as a source. You can even do aftertouch if you must. And again, it's a very powerful synthesizer. At the beginning, when you buy this, when you get it, you see the front panel. The macros, it's not a lot until you see all the power that you have right here. And the first glance is just a very, very simple synthesizer. But then you just open it and it's just like all the things that you can do. It's just great, just amazing. Now you even have access right here to the envelopes. Now right here, we already talked about this. This is the same envelope that we get right here, the mod 1 and the mod 2, but you get it, here. And notice that you also have the 3 envelopes. We already talked about this. It's just a smaller version of the envelopes that we have here. Now, I'm going to go back to default patch, and we're going to keep going. I'm going to go back to synthesis. And a thing that I forgot to tell you is that you can, maybe if you have something right here, you can just copy it from, to the line 2 and vice versa. If I have something like that, I can just, copy and paste it to the line 1. I forgot to tell you that, but that's fine. I'm going to go back to default, and we need to discuss the detune and the unison. Right, so let's talk about the detuning first. Now, this synth is, as you can see, is a little bit different from other synthesizers. You cannot really change the pitch independently. And notice that when the line 2 is off, the detune and the modulation, it's completely off, right? Everything is grayed out. And it's because these options that we have right here to change the note, the fine tuning, the octave, is just for the line 2. It doesn't work on the line 1. So if I change an octave right here, it's gonna only do it on the line 2 and not the line 1. So if I go down on this one, and now again, you get this. So you can offset the 2 from the 1 when you're doing something. Let's say that we do something like that. I can offset it, and now we are offsetting the 2 from 1. And with the note, you don't eat your intervals, and you can even fine tune to separate them if you're using the same thing. Now, that being said, we also have unison. Right, I'm gonna go back to default and do template. I'm gonna go back right here. I'm gonna be, actually, I don't need the line 2. So you have a unison detune. If I go up on the detune, nothing happens because you're not doing unison. If you go all the way at the bottom, it says unison right here and you're using one voice of unison. So you need to select how many voices you want to stack to do a unison. If I do 4, then we get the unison. Now if I go all the way down on unison detune, it's just louder. You need to do some detuning. And also on the same place, you get an octave that will work for both. And you get a master tune that is just gonna detune by sense. Not super important right now. But you can, do your detune all the way up. Now, right there at the bottom, you can select how many voices you're using. If you open the config, you can see right here how many poly you can do when you use unison. Because when you stack voices, each voice will have will use a unison voice. We'll use a voice actually. So if you're playing a lot of keys, every single key is going to be using 4 voices, and you have a limited amount of voices on the synthesizer, and you have 32. Now, don't worry, because every time that you go up on the unison, it will just limit you to do only 8 unison voices. If you're using 4, it's going to do the math for you. If I go to 2 unison voices, we can play up to 16 keys, we can play 16 keys. And if I do 8 unison voices, we can only play 4 keys, right? It depends on what you want to do, how much unison you want. It's gonna limit you the amount of keys you want to play. You can play. Maybe 8 unison voices. My recommendation is it's way too much. It's just too much. 8 unison voices is atrocious. So 4, in my opinion, is just more than enough. Right. So that's the unison. Now we have something right here that says ring and noise. Okay, so back to our default patch. I'm going to be talking about the modulation, the ring and the noise. And remember that this only works when you have the line 2, is a thing that works only on the line 2. So I'm not going to explain what ring modulation, how ring modulation works. You can find that on the web. Go to the web, type ring modulation, and you will find a lot of information about that, how it works, and you can even build it yourself. So right here, how this works on this synthesizer is that the ring is going to modulate. It's going to be ring modulated, but the sound that will be ring modulated is the line 2. So this one is going to be the modulator, this one is going to be the modulated. So when I play something, if I do a ring, we can hear that change, right? And the amount is how much of ring modulation we are doing. So if I go down on the level of this, notice that we don't get it. If I go down on the level of this, of course it goes down. But if I turn it off again, we are getting nothing. Right, so I'm going to go back. So if I go up, we're going to start to get a change because we are doing ring modulation. Now, the thing is that with ring is that the magic happens when you start to offset the different, and for now I'm just going to go down a level. And you're going to see that if I change this, even though we are down a level, we are affecting the line 2 with the ring modulation, right? We are affecting it. So the trick with ring modulation is that you need to change the sources. If the sources are completely the same, the sound is going to be super dull. So I'm going to be doing something on the aggressive side of things. And now if I turn off the ring, it's just very dull. If I turn it on, it's something else. You can do less if you wanted to. I'm going to be offsetting this one. Maybe not that. There you go. Right. So this is how ring works. You choose enabled. You're gonna use your line 1 just to do the ring. And if you want to go up in level, it's gonna really affect the sound, but depends on what you want to do right here. Alright, so back to default. If I turn on the line 2, then we have a noise. So if I turn it on, maybe you're thinking this is noise, and no, it's not. It's gonna be noise. This noise is gonna modulate whatever you have on the line 2. If I go down on line 2, we just get the, pretty much the dull sound of the number 1 right here. If I go up on this one, we are modulating it with noise. Now we can go down because this is just way too aggressive. We're going to be getting something more usable, let's say. I want to say usable. Everything is usable in this life. Right. But this is what it does. Now, maybe you're wondering, where's my noise? So this is the noise. This is noise source. And you don't need to have the line 2 enabled to get it. So the noise source, if I go up in level, it's going to give you the noise. You don't you don't need this one. You just can go up in the level of this and you're gonna get it. Still, if you go up in level, you're gonna get more. Now the color is pretty much, you can just chop it right here. You're gonna be in the brown type of noise, pink type of noise. This is more even type of noise. As I go up, it's gonna be brighter, brighter, and brighter until we chop all the low frequencies and we get only the highs. Right? Right, so that's your noise generator. Now we need to discuss what's going on right here at the bottom, and it's going to be very simple. So let me start again on the default patch so we can all start from the same place. We know that if I play a key, because we already talked about this on the matrix, we have a mod wheel, attached by default to the matrix. If I go up on my mod wheel, we get that vibrato. So this is going to be the vibrato. If I go up in depth and the mod wheel is all the way down, we are just doing it by default. Right. Now you have a delay. So this delay is a little bit weird. If I play it, I'm not doing modulation with the mod wheel. I'm going to be playing a key. Notice it takes a little bit of time to kick in. So it's just a delay, but it's not fading in. It's just right away. So you need to remember that that's how it works. Now, if I go up all the way up on the delay, it's going to take a long time to kick in. It's like 8 or 9 seconds. And there we go. So yeah. But yeah, this is where you've handled the vibrato. And let me just disable the delay. You have a rate right here. You can sync it to whatever is that you want. And the cool thing is that you can use other waveforms. Instead of using a sine wave, you can use a triangle, or maybe something more, noticeable. I'm gonna go up on the right. And, saw down, up, and sample and hold. Right. Cool. So I'm gonna go to sine. And what else? Now, right here you have other options, pretty useful. You get your portamento right here. If you must, I'm gonna get rid of the vibrato, go up in the harmonic content. And you get your portamento. Again, it's gonna glide every time that you play a note. Right. I'm gonna go down. If you click right here, you cannot use it as a polyphonic synthesizer. If I play a chord, notice it's mono, right? So you're just making it mono. And if you want to use unison, I'm gonna go to unison. You can't use unison and mono because it is what, by nature is that. So you're gonna be taking your synthesizer to mono and then do unison. You can do that if you want. I'm gonna be still going to one voice and stay on poly. And then you have this section this one is going to turn on the ring. Now, since this is off, it's just not going to be able to enable, but right here is just the fast way to enable and disable. Same thing with noise. And then you have the line select. So this is the different combinations that you could get with the line 1 and the line 2. If I go to the 1, it's going to be just the 1 on. And the next one is going to be the 2 on. And you see it right here. And then it's going to be 1 plus 2. And then if I do it again, it's going to be the duplicate option that we talked at the very beginning of the video. So you have an arpeggiator, and I'm not gonna expand too much on this because it's the same arpeggiator that you get on every single Arturia synthesizer. Now I'm gonna be playing a chord, and I'm gonna make it mono because I can. And I'm gonna turn it on, and you're gonna be getting your, you're gonna be getting that. Let me just do something a little bit cool, a little bit nicer. Okay, that's fine. So right here, you can turn it on, you turn it off, you can hold it. So I'm playing a key right now, I'm gonna release it, and it's just gonna remember what you do. And if I play a different chord like a 7th, it's just gonna do it, right? So this is, again, just to hold it. You can change your rate, you can change your sync, and on this, all of this is just pretty obvious. Now right here, you can select the gate. It's just shorter and very wide. And the pattern is pretty simple. Right now we have a split. So it's going to, let me just stop it. It's going to remember the, the order of the keys I play, I'm going to be playing that one, and you can see the keys. So the next one is going to be a C. But now I'm going to be going to, maybe a black key, and then I'm going to go up, and then I'm going to go low. So now it has a very specific instruction of the arpeggio, so that's why it's a split. It's going to remember the order of the notes. Now, the other ones are just more classic. You get the up, and if I play a key, a chord, it's going to go up, down, and up. And it's going to be down is down and up. Now, up and down too is repeating the first and the last note every time it goes up and goes down. And as you could guess, you get random. Right. Now, when you go to the S played, well, actually any mode, you have one octave. So if I'm playing a chord, I'm playing a triad on this octave, it's going to repeat it on this octave and the next one. So it's just repeating this and the next octave. And all this is just very common for all arpeggiators, hardware or software. If I do 3, it's going to do it 3 times. And if I do 4, it's going to go through 4 different octaves, including the current one. Right? Now, again, all of these are just very simple options and common options that you get, common things that you get with all the Arturia synths. And we are pretty much done. You get your macros right here, your volume, and your pitch bend and your mod wheel. I don't know what else to tell you. We already learned everything else, which was, maybe a lot of information to take in because the synthesizer is pretty powerful. Now you just need to go maybe to the presets, and just, look at that, a lot of presets. So you can just see how it sounds. Alright, so really cool sounds. And I believe that we are done. I don't need to do this with you. You can do it at home. Right? But I'm just, fooling around. Alright, so you have a million sounds that you can explore. So go and explore. And now that since you know how all the different parts work, maybe you can go to a pad that you really like. You can just check how the envelopes, how it's working, how much, what it's doing on the modulation matrix, and just, learn, because this is the way you learn to create, cool patches and do sound design. Alright, so hopefully all of this was useful and maybe you learned something new. So remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can go to the links in the description and you will find links for PayPal. You have YouTube thanks, and you have Patreon. So maybe you can be a 1-month patron and buy me a coffee that way. Right? So thanks for watching and see you on the next one.